Okay, and it looks like it's working. Do I sound okay?
You sound great.
I'm not too crunchy or anything?
You're not crunchy at all.
Oh, good. I think... I don't know. Is being crunchy a bad thing?
I mean, that's just how I say you have distortion.
What do you have against crunchy?
Most people find it unpleasant.
It depends on what we're talking about here.
I mean, I guess if you're, like, listening to black metal, then that's desirable, but, like...
Oh, I was thinking more like peanut butter.
No, that's food, though. That's different.
It's still crunchy.
I just said, when I say it, I'm talking about microphone distortion, so...
You're anti-crunchy, is what I'm understanding.
I mean, I do like smooth peanut butter, I guess, but I'm not against crunchy.
I do too. I kind of have a... Like, crunchy peanut butter's not awful, but, like, no. I wouldn't pick it.
Right, but, like, sometimes I like crunchy, like a Nestle Crunch bar is fine.
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely.
Yeah. So there you go. Are you recording now?
Yeah. I've been recording for about a minute and a half.
Okay, good. I hope we keep the Crunch bar conversation in.
I'm up for that.
Hi, I'm Chris.
And I'm Jeff, and welcome to the Sound Judgment Podcast,
where every episode we'll be discussing all of the important musical topics, from reviews to which member of Motley Crue is the most vile.
I'm gonna judge the officials. I'm gonna judge all the judges. It's gonna take you people years to recover from all my opinions.
Well, I'll tell you what I've been listening to quite a bit of lately, Jeff.
Okay. I thought you just did.
Shut the fuck up! Oh, I'm going somewhere. I'm setting up a bit.
I'm sorry. This is a bit. I need to commit to the bit, but I didn't know it was a bit. Okay, take 3.
So you know what else I've been listening to a lot of lately, Jeff? What's up? Is Live Killers by Queen. Because I got it on vinyl.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah, I did. I got it on
vinyl.
Nice. I actually now have the first 8 studio Queen albums and Live Killers on vinyl.
Very nice. It's a nice little...
Which, up until the game, which is kind of where I kind of, like, lose my love of Kiss, and it just becomes a,
I'm sorry, your love of Kiss?
Shut the fuck up. I hate Kiss.
You're doing great.
Love of Queen.
Your love of Queen.
Which is kind of where I lose my love of Queen, and it just becomes, when you check in with that person who used to be your friend every once in a while, because you do kind of like I want to break free. But
wow, okay.
Shut the fuck up. I'm wide awake. I'm not losing it yet.
You do not stop awake anymore. It's only 8 o'clock.
That's late when you get up at 4:30.
All right, valid. Okay.
Okay, but I wanted to talk. It made me want to talk about live albums a little bit, right?
Okay.
Because
yeah.
we both love live albums.
I do love live albums.
And I really do think that live albums are something that we could talk about more than once, because I originally started thinking about, what are my favorite live albums? What are some, weird, quirky live albums that we could talk about? Like that one where it's, just Elvis talking and they cut out all of the music. That's fun. That's an interesting album. Notably bad live albums like that horrible Jerry Only fronted Misfits live album.
Yeah. Oh man.
But I said something to one of our mutual friends who's a big Queen fan. I said, I got Live Killers, and one of my favorite live albums, which is an opinion that makes him aggressive. And he reminds me that that's not a real live album. And that it's
heavily edited, isn't it?
All of the songs, so there's different takes on this, but for the narrative that we're going for here, all of the songs are kind of Frankenstein together from like 4 or 5 different recordings. Every song features heavy studio overdubs. Some of the songs are like suspected to be completely staged because there's bootlegs of most of the nights, and some of them don't match up with any of the bootlegs.
Yeah, I vaguely remember this being a thing. In fact, I feel like, wasn't there a website? There's a website about this.
So there's a website where they try to match up, like, with timestamps, what show every song is probably from, and some of them are just still unknown, and they might have just been redone. So that's like an opinion that that he's allowed to have, but it made me think, about other live albums that are of a suspicious origin.
Okay.
Some of the ones that I've heard before, and I also kind of looked up this concept to see like what else other people were talking about. People have said Guns N' Roses Live Like a Suicide. People have said Kiss's Alive 2.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
People have said Unleashed in the East by Judas Priest. I think a confirmed one is Party by the Beach Boys.
Who gives a shit?
Live and Dangerous from Thin Lizzy. Frampton Comes Alive was on the list. An infamous one is Slayer's Live Undead, because people thought it was a studio recording with crowd noise like pumped in for years, but it seems that it probably was recorded live, but only 12 people showed up and their mics didn't pick up anyone. But if you've never listened to this, please just like for a second go to Live Undead and Slayer's discography and listen to the fucking fake ass crowd noise.
Yeah, no, I don't know this at all, and I'm so caught up on you saying Frampton Comes Alive. I actually was not aware there was ever controversy around that. So hold on, let me pull up Slayer here though. Yeah, you have sparked my interest, sir. Is this an early album? Okay, yeah, wow, 84. This is literally
they were promoting Show No Mercy. They didn't have their second album or anything out yet.
Any track in particular should I go with?
Just you can just listen to the opening Black Magic and you can hear how fucking fake this crowd sounds during the whole track. It just doesn't sound like they're even in the room with the band.
Oh my god. Wow. Oh no. The crowd cheering has nothing to do with the music.
Right, yeah,
like,
exactly.
They're not reacting at all. It's just
Yeah, right? It just sounds like they like picked up ambient crowd noise and just threw like from some other source and just threw it in front of Slayer playing.
Oh my god. So I'm putting on Evil Has No Boundaries real quick.
Yeah.
And it's like the same.
They're all like this, yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. No, I had no idea.
You're welcome.
But in all fairness, like, I mean, now I wasn't there in 1984, but they had
apparently only 12 people were.
They had one full album out. Like, of course they weren't going to be bringing in crowds that big.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that's amazing.
So I was thinking we could do a little bit of research, find a couple of these albums that we'd be interested in. I'm sure you know Live Like a Suicide. I'm sure, you've heard Kiss Alive 2 or Kiss Alive.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And just kind of maybe come back in like a week or two and compare notes.
That's so fun. I love this.
Okay, cool.
That's so cool.
I thought that you'd like this one.
I actually like the fact that, like, as I was taking notes on live albums, one of my notes, I was splitting it just in pros and cons of live albums, and one of my cons is when it's obviously been doctored, so this is perfect, because I actually already know a few examples of this.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, it's like, it's about the final product, so there are ones that are doctored that I still like in spite of that, like Life Goes. Like, I don't care that it's doctored. I know it is, and I still like the experience of listening to it.
No, but there's some that that they sound bad because
But sometimes they sound like fucking Live Undead by Slayer.
Oh my god, that's hilarious. I love this.
Real quick, what's going on with this Motley Crue thing? They're gonna record an album now?
Are you kidding me? There's more. I actually did not know there's more Motley Crue news.
What I read was them saying that they were going to record a new album, Mick Mars Be Damned.
Are you kidding me?
No. And they said that Mick Mars, needs rescued from his manager and that his manager's, committing elder abuse and...
Oh my god. I just love, I look up... This is ridiculous. I just do a Google search for Motley Crue, and there are multiple articles within the past 2 days, and they're all different, and none of them are good.
It never stops. The Motley Crue train wreck just never stops wrecking.
One of them is the dirt worth watching? One of them is, again, them saying they have not used backing tracks, which they absolutely have. One of them is Motley Crue calls fan, quote, a fucking clown. Oh my god. Why are they like this?
This is the world's
God.
slowest train derailment.
It is so frustrating being a fan of their music, man. It makes it very hard to be a fan of Motley Crue.
So, and this all stems from accusations of them faking their live show?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Speaking of faking a live show...
Speaking of faking live shows, that's literally what we're talking about here. Well, not live shows, but we're talking about live albums, or rather, how live are live albums, I guess is really the question. Because you brought up what started this, is you fed to me, like, forcefully, you spooned this into my mouth, an early live album by Slayer.
Did you check Live Undead out?
Oh, is that what it was called? I was actually looking for it. I can't remember what it was called.
Live Undead.
Yeah, so, it is, the band existed, like, what, for a year by the time this was recorded. There is no way they were bringing in the audience that you hear in this recording.
No.
Like, you are hearing, like, I don't want to say like a stadium, but you're hearing a large room full of people.
Yeah.
When they were absolutely playing in front of, like, tiny crowds still at this point.
I think the manager's claim is that they recorded this in front of 12 people. Or something like that.
Yeah. And they just added in audience noise to make it sound
like a full room.
Like a bigger full room concert. I think, before we get into any of this, I think that brings up the disclaimer that so much of this is hearsay.
Yeah.
So much of whether this recording was live, this recording was overdubbed, this recording was this recording was spliced together, so much of it is hearsay, and I found that really frustrating. I was assuming that more albums would have had this information, like, in the liner notes, and there are examples where it is. But there's so many where I'm just finding the same conversation on forum websites over the past 20 years of people arguing over what's live, what isn't, what's overdubbed, what's taken from what night, whatever. So, there's a lot of speculation. Anything I say, I kind of feel like, anything I've read, I feel like take it with a grain of salt.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. I found a lot of the things that you were saying on, finding old forum posts and stuff like that. I tried to, like, look into some of these albums as I was looking them up, and a lot of them do have, the arguments that the producers and the managers had, and, like, a lot of this is you can find somewhere on the Wikipedia page where they talk about, like, we at least know it's taken from across 3 nights, or they pumped in audio, like, but as far as some of them being, like, there's debate as to how much of that is true. One really good example is Live Killers by Queen, where there is actually a website that tracks timestamps. If you want to look at that, I'll leave it in the description. That tracks the timestamps across 3 nights that it was recorded, but there's also a bunch of unknown ones, and some of those are suspected to be done in the studio or taken from another night that, like, isn't listed. Because I think that for that one, the jacket does say that the songs are taken from 3 nights. It makes it sound like the songs are there complete just from, like, different nights.
Yeah.
Whereas you can actually go to a website where it timestamps where songs cut between nights.
So I've actually found a few websites like that. There's another one. It's thegardentapes.co.uk/tgt.html. And it is somebody who did that kind of breakdown for Led Zeppelin's The Song Remains the Same.
Okay.
Which was the same deal. It was 3 nights at Madison Square Garden, and this website broke it down second by second. This was taken from this night, this was taken from this night, this was taken from this night, this was cut completely. And also, apparently, I did not realize this, there's a difference between The Song Remains the Same CD and video.
Yeah.
Like, there are recordings of those that are spliced together differently, which is a whole weird story.
Yeah.
But okay, before we get too ahead of ourselves, I feel like let's just like lay down I don't want to say like the ground rules, but like let's lay this down into types of live albums, right?
Yeah.
Because I feel like there's very specific ways that these are done. There's live albums that are completely unedited, which I think for the most part are like bootleg recordings.
Yeah.
Some of which are released officially, but like they're basically bootleg recordings.
Yeah, or you just well, I'll let you go to the second one. Maybe that okay. Covers this, but like, or sometimes you just get lucky and you get a good night and you only have to do a little bit of overdubbing or whatever.
Yeah. So then there's some people who release the like just the straight soundboard audio.
Yeah.
Which I have hits and misses on those soundboard recording that get released. You also have, as we both mentioned, between Queen and Led Zeppelin, a very common thing that happens is you get multiple nights were recorded and bits and pieces were taken. Now, ideally, you would get a full song, but it might be like, oh, song 1 was from this night, song 2 was from this night, song 3 was from this night. But really what happens frequently is the songs themselves are spliced together from different nights. Like, you might have half a guitar solo from one night, and then the second half of the guitar solo was from another night. So it's literally the same track spliced in multiple spaces. And then you have the full-on, this was a live recording, but it was overdubbed to various extents. In some cases I've read, which we'll get to, it's very minimal, and some people supposedly have proof it's very minimal. And in some cases, there's some pretty notable ones where almost everything was re-recorded.
Yeah.
So in some cases, you might have, like, maybe the singer re-recorded all or almost all of the vocals. But the rest of the band is live, so it's still a live performance, quote-unquote, I guess.
Yeah.
And then worst case scenario, you have the recordings that were literally not live at all, or they were just like live on like a soundstage, and they pumped in audience audio in front of everything. So it's like the songs were recorded and edited in a studio setting practically, and then a fake audience was put over it. So there's a whole line of live albums. Before anything, I have to say, I love live albums. And I think I've even said this before on the podcast. I love live albums. There is a good chance if I am listening to a band, especially like a rock band from the 60s, 70s, and 80s, there's a good chance one of the go-to albums for me is a live album. Even if I know a lot of it is overdubbed or edited in some way. There's a lot about live albums I just really enjoy.
Right.
And I think that's a big part of this discussion. And I'm going to quote, of all people, Paul Stanley of Kiss. Quote, "If it feels like a live experience, it is a live experience." And he said this referring to Kiss Alive, the first one.
Yeah.
Which, even by their own admission, I don't believe at the time, but, 20 years later, they did record it live, and then it's full of overdubs.
Yeah.
Because their show wasn't necessarily all about being musically perfect. It was a spectacle. Like, Kiss were a circus in the 70s, and Kiss Alive is from, I believe, 75. So there's actually a VH1 documentary. I apologize. I thought I had it written here, and I lost it. Oh, VH1 Ultimate Albums is a series they did, where they actually talked to Eddie Kramer, the producer of Kiss Alive. And in this documentary, he even shows, like, oh yeah, here's the recording of Paul Stanley, like, at the night, and we re-recorded it so it sounds like this. Like, he's not shy about the fact that, like, oh yeah, no, we doctored the hell out of this.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. I know that bothers some people, but I'm going to agree with Mr. Stanley that if it feels like a live album, it's serving its purpose. Kiss Alive feels like a live performance. It's a very good live performance. It's an unrealistically good live performance in some ways. But it feels like a live performance, and I think it sounds awesome. So, tangent over. Before we get into anything else, I just want to say, like, there's different levels of how live an album is, and in the end, I still like them.
So
the ones I dislike we'll get into, and they're normally for other reasons.
So I'm going to agree with you. I also really like live albums, and I was actually doing a little bit of reading on what Peter Frampton had to say about, I guess a newspaper made a joke accusing him of Frampton Alive mostly being re-recorded in the studio.
Yes. Please explain.
They made a joke about it, and he responded. I just have like his quotes here. Although one thing that I don't think I wrote down was he made some sort of comment as if you want to hear an album that was completely dubbed over, you can listen to Kiss Alive. They borrowed my amps to make the overdubs for that.
I have heard rumor that was a thing, but I had not seen a quote specifically from Peter Frampton, so that's pretty funny.
Which follows with an editor's note that something along the lines of, hey, whatever you have to do, that album rules. So I guess that guy agrees with you. But he said, in those days, technology was not as it is today. It was just not as technical. We've come a long way, obviously. So unfortunately, on a couple of tracks, only some instruments were not recorded because there was a crackling on the tape, or the assistant or the guitar tech didn't move the mic. As for the number of times that anything is overdubbed on Frampton Comes Alive, the rule was that if it didn't make it to the tape, then we can redo it because it needs to be done. If it made it to tape and it sounds good, we leave it. So nothing was overdubbed on that album that wasn't absolutely necessary. We left the mistakes in. If I wanted my voice to be perfect and in tune, I could have resung the whole album, but I didn't, because then it wouldn't be live. And there were some really bad notes that I sing and some really out-of-tune guitar notes that I play on that album as well.
Interesting. So that's actually really funny, because you mentioned that when we were discussing doing this as a topic, you mentioned Frampton Comes Alive as one of these disputed albums, and quite frankly, I never even thought of it. But I also, I never put any critical thought into that album in general. I mean, not that it's a bad album, but I'll be honest, I really like Peter Frampton. I'm really not super into that as an album, mostly just due to the fact that I don't like most of the songs he had back then in his catalog. It's just not an album I ever really go to.
But I do think it is an interesting perspective that, at least I didn't think about it whenever I came up with this, that back in the 70s, if something fucking, got messed up on one of the tapes, you have to re-record it.
Yeah.
If you got crackling or that
you didn't
feedback.
have an option.
It's, I guess I took modern technology for granted for that for a second. But yeah, it's like, now that sounds real obvious.
Yeah, again, it's just one of those ones I never put the critical thought into it, and then as soon as I took a second to think about it, it's like, oh, yeah, it really is obvious. It makes so much sense.
Yeah. Another one that was interesting, just real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
I remember when Record Day was coming up. I think it was after we stopped recording, but I brought up the Live and Dangerous recording from Thin Lizzy.
Yes.
Which was a live album, and I didn't understand why they were saying this is the first time on vinyl when I'm I have it on vinyl. It's right over there. So apparently that's another one of these records that was debated how live it was.
Yeah.
Because it too was taken from across 3 nights.
Yeah.
And so Thin Lizzy's manager and the guy who produced it, I guess, were debating in comments and interviews over the years. The producer saying that album is 75% in the studio and they just added live parts later. And the manager was like, no, it's mostly live and we just did a little bit of overdubbing after the fact. So what they actually released on Record Store Day was the first night unedited of that tour.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Which
that's actually really cool. I did not realize that.
Yeah, it would have been really cool if they named it something else or were a little bit clearer about what they were releasing, because then I might have bought it. But apparently, when people put them side by side, because it has been out for a year. This was the Record Store Day release, but it's already part of a CD box set that you can buy for a year now.
Okay.
But I don't believe it's on Spotify. At least I didn't see it. But apparently they compared them side by side, and there weren't as many overdubs or cuts to different nights as like anyone originally thought. It was like way more of a pure live recording than like most people expected it to be.
So maybe because I have written down it's actually in the album book that claims it is like 75% live. So maybe that's actually correct, and it's the producer who I have written down as Tony Visanti, who he's the one who claims it's the other way around. It's only about 25% live.
Right.
Interesting. I mean, either that or what they released is a lot of other takes that were doctored.
Well, supposedly
and just never released. So who knows?
Well, so what was released on vinyl was the first night, but the box set actually contains all 3 like unedited nights, supposedly.
Okay. That's that. See, that's actually really cool. But I think that begs the question of, do you, this is you personally, do you personally want a live album that is literally just a straight through single night, versus would you rather have, let's say the best of 3 nights all put together into one set list?
Yeah.
Like, what would you personally prefer?
This is where I get caught up in the fact that, like, well, the version that's taken from across 3 nights actually has the entire show, whereas a couple songs are like cut off from the cut up version, right?
Okay.
And as like a fan of like just having more of the music, I would want the extra songs, and therefore I would probably buy that record if I had known what it was, you know what I mean?
Yeah, okay.
But I also I have no problem owning what I own, knowing that it is mostly unedited anyway.
Yeah, okay.
But I think it would be interesting to just listen to them side by side or something. I wish it I don't know if it maybe is out there, someone doing the timestamps for that album, but
can I just say how much dedication that is for these people who are like finding bootleg recordings of specific nights and then comparing it to the to the released albums?
That's incredible.
But see, here's the thing I think of though, and this is why I am in favor of these like the best of multiple nights all put together.
Yeah.
And the best example I've recently found is from our good old friends Pearl Jam.
Okay, yeah.
Who recently released another
who also
live
had
album.
A record store day release.
Is that what this giveaway is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or at least the vinyl version was out on that same record store day.
Yeah, well, it was recent release as far as I can tell, even though it's a live recording from I think it said 1998.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, if I stood in line, all right?
Yeah.
If I stood in line to buy a Pearl Jam live album recorded back in the 90s, I would be livid if this is the album I went home with. It is... Eddie Vedder is so much better than what is on this record.
Right.
It is embarrassing to me that they chose to release this, which I think begs the question of just like, why? Like, surely there are literally dozens of other full Pearl Jam recording, like live album recordings, that are yet to be released, where Eddie's voice doesn't break every time he gets into like the upper fifth of his range.
Dude, I mean, but are there though? Have you ever seen the list of Pearl Jam official live releases?
I mean, do they really just release like every take they've ever done?
Dear sweet Jesus, maybe.
Okay, I mean, well, maybe there aren't then. Maybe they're already all out there. Maybe there really are just down to the ones where Eddie's voice cracks every 30 seconds.
Hold on one second.
Because... Oh, go ahead.
Go to Pearl Jam on Spotify.
I'm actually looking right now. Wow, they really do have a lot of... Okay, they do have a lot of live albums.
Yeah, you could just.
And these are okay, and they're all dated.
I was gonna say, now these probably all don't have official releases, but they sure do put a whole shitload of their concerts like up to either their fans or because I think some of these like had physical releases through their fan website or whatever, through their fan.
Okay.
But there's plenty on streaming. If you want some live Pearl Jam, you can fucking go on streaming right now and find them from any decade, it looks like.
I've seen at least 2 recorded in Pittsburgh so far, just scrolling through these.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I'm actually wondering... Man, I don't know. I'm still gonna stand by, like, I'm sorry. This giveaway being released, 25 years after the fact, and Eddie sounds this bad when, like, surely he's sounded better. Like, this has to just be a bad night. I give credit where it's due. I will never say I think Eddie is, like, a bad vocalist or frontman. But, like, it's so frustrating. It's so frustrating listening, but no, I actually had no idea they released this many live albums. Also, like, now that you're saying this, I swear to God, I've looked at Pearl Jam on Spotify before, and these were not all here. When the hell did these all get here? Oh, they're all labeled as compilation. I don't normally scroll down that far.
If you set it to albums, to studio albums, they all go away.
So go figure, this new one is under the albums section, which is why I saw it.
Yeah.
And the rest of these are under compilation on Spotify. Holy hell, why would you do this? Okay, I mean, I guess whatever makes the fans happy, but Jesus, I guess this is just more proof that I'm really not a Pearl Jam fan. Holy hell.
There's plenty of live Pearl Jam out there for you.
I'm gonna have to skim through some of these and see how Eddie is, like, more often. Because I'm really, on one hand, I'm really hoping this giveaway was actually just a bad night.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, that just makes me angry that this was, like, a special release. I don't know, maybe the people who are into this kind of thing, maybe they're excited about how, I don't know, I'm sure someone out there is going to be yelling that, like, oh no, it's just raw and emotive. And it's like, no, it's just not good.
You mean we're going to get a comment that says something like we're wrong about a Pearl Jam?
Yeah, exactly. No, we're not wrong. Pearl Jam is not as good as I thought they were, is I think really what's happening here. That's why I have to keep bringing them up.
The first 3 albums are really good, and then you get the best of, and then you're kind of done.
No, but see, that's the thing. I've never even said the first 3 albums are really good. The first album is really good, and then there's a couple songs off the next 2.
Like Verses?
It has a couple songs.
Oh, come on.
I guess.
Alright, whatever.
In fact, it has 2 good, like, honestly, it has 2 good songs. It has Elderly One Behind the Counter, and it has Daughter.
Alright.
Anyway, that's not my point. My point is I'd be embarrassed, and I'd be frustrated if I went to Record Store Day, which, yet again, I didn't, because there's never anything I want. But if I went, and I stood in line somewhere, and this is what I came home with, I would have been very, very annoyed. How about I found a lot of talk about Deep Purple's Made in Japan album?
Yes.
And I found a lot of people fighting over whether it is not overdubbed at all, or there is one overdub, from what I have found people arguing about.
Yeah.
And it happens in the song Strange Kind of Woman. The story goes that Ian Gillan tripped over a microphone cord, so that small section had to be like redone in the studio afterwards.
Yeah.
But as always, I can find no proof other than hearsay. A handful of forum posts and a couple blog posts where people reference it, but there's no citation. I also did find, and this just kind of made me laugh, because I've never even noticed this. I found a forum post where a guy said that he believes it is completely unedited because in the song Lazy, you can hear Ian Gillan say what sounds like, "Oh, shut up." And the poster on this forum speculates that the "shut up" was directed to Richie Blackmore, who was being a little noodly during the song. And he thinks that that's Ian Gillan yelling at Richie Blackmore, which obviously, if this were going to be doctored, surely they would have taken that out. That's a lot of speculating, but I think it makes for a good story, so I had to tell it.
I really like it anytime someone is telling him to shut up.
Oh, I think it's hysterical.
I love that video of Ronnie James Dio on the bus.
What is it? Congratulations, Richie, you can play guitar.
Yeah.
Or something. Yeah, I mean, not to go on a whole tangent here, but God, I love Richie Blackmore, but I also love people ripping on Richie Blackmore. I love every time someone tells a story about him being a jackass, just because I think it makes it seems so perfect that, like, of course he's one of the least likable people alive.
I found something on the old Wikipedia.
Yeah.
That says John Lord, organ and piano player for Deep Purple, once made a statement in an interview. Strange Kind of Woman had to be redubbed from a different show after Gillan had tripped over the microphone cable, but no direct evidence has been found of this when the multi-track tapes were examined. And according to Wikipedia, it's believed that there's no overdubs on the album.
Okay, but on, like, you know how Wikipedia has their citations, right?
Yeah.
Go to what it cites.
Right.
Does it open anything for you?
It's a book.
Like, oh, okay.
It's a book or newspaper.
So maybe that was the wrong thing. I just know, like, there were a couple times where I found citations, but, like, the link was dead.
Yeah.
So the thing it cited doesn't exist anymore. So I'm just like, all right, that was useless. I was thinking that was one of them, but maybe not.
No, I'm just presenting a counterpoint. Everything, both sides of the argument should be taken with a grain of salt. We're all speculating here tonight.
Again, there's a lot of speculation here. So speaking of speculation, can I give a couple speculations that I thought were really fun?
Go for it.
So and these are just based on just like old forum posts, Reddit posts, stuff like that. But again, no citations. So I can't back any of this up. These are just a couple things that made me laugh.
Okay.
Jane's Addiction's live album, according to a poster, was live, but the audience sound was taken directly from a Los Lobos live album. Again, I have no idea if that's true or not, but that makes me laugh. I think that's hysterical. Jimmy Reed at Carnegie Hall. It's a double album he did in the 60s. And this is straight off of Wikipedia here, and they have a citation. Though the title suggests that the record was recorded live, it consists of studio recreations of a Carnegie Hall performance, along with additional studio recordings. The problem is that citation went to nothing, so I have no clue where that comes from, but I love that idea so much. And then this one, I read, and I had to go and find it myself, and dear God, it might be one of the funniest things I've ever heard. Billy Joel has an album called 2000 Years, The Millennium Concert, right?
Yeah.
And you know the song Scenes from an Italian Restaurant, I assume.
Yeah.
Okay. This recording on 2000 Years, The Millennium Concert of Scenes from an Italian Restaurant. The first verse is so obviously, it is a recording of Billy Joel, but it has to be like 20 years old. And then, you know, it has the saxophone break, and it breaks into the second verse where it sounds more like current live vocals. And you can tell because the first verse, Billy Joel, when he was younger, had this higher tone quality, not like pitch. He didn't change the key of the song. The tone quality of his voice was higher and brighter and more heady. And then because he's human, most people do, as you get older, your voices kind of warm and become darker and more chesty. So the first verse is so obviously Billy Joel, like in his 20s or 30s, singing this song. You know, a bottle of red, a bottle of white, right?
Yeah.
And then, you know, saxophone solo, things are okay with me these days. It's so fucking funny. I swear to God, you need to go listen to this. I literally put this on in the car on my way home from work the other day, and I about died when I realized, like, oh my God, this person's not kidding. This is so faked, it's unreal.
Did they give a reason why that may have happened?
I could not find a reason why it may have happened, no. It was just someone basically on a forum bitching about how bad this is. And I had to listen to... Because I've never listened to this album. I have no... I have no desire to. When Billy Joel has other live albums that I really like, I didn't really need to go back to one from 2000. I didn't really care. I like old man Billy Joel a lot more than I like young man Billy Joel. I like his voice now as an older man. So, like, if I'm going to listen to a Billy Joel live album, like, the one I go to is Live at Shea Stadium. From, like, 20... What is this? This is 2011, so I'm assuming somewhere around there. I just like his voice so much more as he's aged. He's one of those guys who I think has aged very well. So, like, why would I go back and listen to back when he was whiny and annoying? That sounds stupid. So... So even better, you can go back 23 years and then hear a recording that's 40 years 40 years old at the beginning of Scenes from an Italian Restaurant. Absolutely beautiful. It's one of my favorite things I found in my research here.
What did you listen through any of these albums that people were claiming to be fake the whole way?
I've listened to... Well, the thing is, some of the most famous ones that people say are fake the whole way are albums that are in, like, my regular rotation. Like, Kiss Alive 1, 2, and 3 are fairly common in my routine playing here.
I had not listened to them because I'm not a Kiss fan. And I did, and I'm still not a Kiss fan. So...
I mean, the thing, like, you need to be a Kiss fan to enjoy them. But, like, if you're a fan of Kiss, they're probably the best albums they've ever put out.
Yeah, I mean, I hate Kiss. Yeah, I mean, that's another one where it's, like, recorded across multiple nights, plus there's, like, sound check recordings mixed in with live noise. And, studio editions. But, that was one of the ones where I checked out the songs that I liked. I made an effort, Jeff. I tried to listen through, but I made it to Ladies' Room. And with a gun to my head, I will never listen to the song Ladies' Room again by Kiss. And that is a problem with the Kiss live album, is that...
I mean, if you don't like the songs...
Ladies' Room.
If you don't like the songs, you're not gonna like the recording.
I didn't know Ladies' Room, and now I know that I'd rather have a gun to my head. Jeff, can you give us a countdown of the top 10 Kiss songs?
No, I can't remember it anymore. Oh, okay, I'm going to try my best. This was a top 10 list that I made years ago, many years ago. And I'm going to try my best to remember what they were. So it's Love Gun and Love Gun. Number 8 was Love Gun. Number 7 was the recording of I Want to Rock and Roll All Night that they used in Tony Hawk Is It Underground? I think number 6 was Love Gun. Number 5, I think, was Love Gun. Number 4, I think, was Beth. Number 3 was Love Gun. Number 2, I think, was Love Gun. And number 1 was that one time Nirvana covered. I don't even remember what song it was. What song was it, Chris?
Fuck.
What song did Nirvana, half cup? Do You Love Me? With an honorable mention of Love Gun.
Well, you can throw in an honorable mention of Love Gun from one of the Kiss Alives.
That's very true. That's very true. God, I forgot about the Kiss top 10 list.
Man, I listened to parts of Kiss Alive so you could give me the Kiss top 10 list again.
Oh, that's a shame. I actually listen to those frequently. I love the Kiss Alive albums.
No, the songs that I like were good, and I'll be fair about that. But it also just made me realize that, man, I like songs by Kiss. I don't like Kiss at all.
That is completely understandable is the problem. I can't argue that point. Kiss is, I think, deservedly so extremely divisive in that, I think everybody knows Kiss. But I genuinely question anyone, let's say, who's 35 and younger. I genuinely question how many songs by Kiss they actually know. Do you know the first line of Detroit Rock City?
Everybody gonna move their feet.
Okay, exactly. You can't, that's one of their big songs, and you don't even know the first line of the song.
I don't know, it's just Paul Stanley lisping through it no matter what it is.
But I think that says a lot about, how much they truly are relevant.
Saturday night! Or whatever the fuck he says.
Yeah, it's I Feel Uptight on a Saturday Night.
There you go, I did it. Yabba dabba dabba Saturday night.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you believe that Live Like a Suicide is fake, Jeff?
I don't know which one that is.
That's the Guns N' Roses album that's just 2 covers and a couple outtakes from Appetite for Destruction, and they threw live sound over it to be funny.
Count.
Well, I found it on the list, and then I looked it up. I'm like, there's not even an argument about this. But
yeah,
I don't know how they could. I don't know who this would fool. Guns N' Roses never played a live show. They don't show up, and even if they did, they couldn't get through 5 songs without problems.
That is not true. But that being said, so another live album that I genuinely love is the Guns N' Roses live album. But please note, its official title is Live Era 87 to 93.
Yeah.
It is literally 5 to 6 years worth of separate recordings. And I don't know how much of it was spliced together, but it was all made to sound as if it's one concert when it very, very blatantly isn't.
Does Axl's voice change on that one? I would imagine for over a decade like that.
It's not a decade. It's 87 to 93. It's not quite a decade. No. It's 5 to 6 years depending on what the dates were.
A baker's dozen.
But that's not how that works. That's even more. But either way, it's definitely spliced together, but I could not find a whole lot of specifics as to, was this song cut into 7 parts or whatever.
Well, no, what I'm asking is, does Axl's voice change? Can you, tell him getting older as the concert goes on, like the Billy Joel thing?
I'll be honest, no.
Okay.
Because it's not that long of a difference. This Billy Joel recording, the first verse is very seriously, it has to be 20 years older than the recording itself.
Okay.
It's so bad. Another one is Poison's Swallow This Live, which is another one that was recorded over the course of, multiple years. And they edited it together to make it sound like one show. So this actually was one of my first live albums. This is one of the albums that got me into live recordings. I love this album. And 15-year-old me or whatever, when he bought this, loved this album. I now come to find out that people hate it. This album gets panned. And I'll be honest, I don't really know why, but maybe part of it is the fact that people were expecting more from Poison than I am.
Are people mad about, the overdubs, or that are there overdubs? Is it one of these fake live albums? Are people pissed about that?
I'm assuming there are some overdubs, but quite frankly, there's also things like you hear Bret Michaels' voice singing in harmony with himself.
Okay.
But that happens at the live shows anyway.
Yeah.
It's just backing tracks. That doesn't. Yeah. That's just part of how the performance works, and that kind of thing doesn't bother me. I don't really care. And honestly, it's flawed. It's so flawed in a lot of ways that if they were overdubbing this, shame on them. Okay. Because they could have done better.
Okay.
But that's part of why I like it, because it's just
it's raw.
It's so raw and ridiculous and campy and fun, and it's a fun collection of songs. And speaking of it being raw, it makes me laugh because Poison's other live album is called Live, Raw, and Uncut, and it is supposedly a soundboard recording.
Okay.
So here's the thing. As far as I know, Live, Raw, and Uncut is exactly as it says. It's not heavily spliced or overdubbed or anything. It is just a soundboard recording. God, it sounds awful, though.
Really?
I do not listen to this album. It sounds so bad because everything is recorded to sound one of the things you're missing, and this is why I think I like some bootleg recordings so much more, is because it's just a microphone out in the audience, and you're picking it up. You're picking up all of the air that is being moved by the amplifiers and the drums and all of the PA system, right?
Yeah.
You're hearing everything. You're hearing all that air moving, and you're hearing the audience, which there's something about the white noise of an audience that just fills sonic space that I think makes part of my brain happy.
Right.
When you get these soundboard recordings, you lose a lot of the audience. They're there, but they're just kind of ambiently being picked up. But you're also just not getting all of the air moving. You're not getting how big the sound is. So everything sounds thin. The usually on these soundboard recordings, the guitars are so tinny and trebly because that's what you need to cut through a mix.
Yeah.
But that doesn't sound good on its own. The basses always sound clicky. Think Fieldy from Korn, right?
Right.
Everyone's bass, even Gene Simmons, they have they're releasing a set of soundboard recordings, and he's got that Fieldy tone.
Yeah.
That slapping metal with your finger, it just all sounds thin and tinny, and I hate it. This is
Yeah.
one of those ones where I'm like, I'm forgiving. No, I'd rather have an overdubbed, semi-faked live album over when your next best option is these awful soundboard recordings. Give me a soundboard recording that at least is mixed properly.
I was gonna say, because we've talked about the soundboard recording, and you hate the soundboard recording.
For some, I mean, I hate Kiss's soundboard recording.
Yeah.
There's I don't know.
We'll say for the okay, you certainly hate the unmixed live soundboard recording.
I hate it when they're not like it's mixed for a live setting as
Yeah.
it should be, but then like it's not like it feels like they
It's
didn't
not
do anything to
remixed
mix
for an
it.
album.
Yeah, and I feel like it really needed to be.
Yeah.
And this is why my favorite live recordings tend to be either ones that are literal bootlegs, even though the recording quality might be lacking, I like the sound of it better.
Yeah.
Or these ones that are, maybe touched up a little bit.
I mean, I'm with you. I'm not against the touching up. I just kind of thought that the topic of these albums are accused, at least, of being completely fabricated is kind of funny.
Oh yeah, I think it's hysterical,
And
I would love to know, like, is there one of these live albums that I love that is literally just like studio recordings with fake audience?
Yeah,
I don't know.
and I've said before I would love to come back to the topic of live albums because I'm sure we both have more we can say and more albums we can talk about. Because
again, that's a huge part, like a huge portion of my listening is live albums, like without a doubt.
I'll do one more that's kind of on the topic of the fakery.
Yeah,
because I sent you an article between the last time we recorded and now.
yes, you did. Okay, real quick, can I just say we've been lucking out, man. Like, first we're talking about Baby Metal, and like what in between deciding to do it and then talking about it, they have big news.
Yeah,
Where like they add a new member, and now we decide to talk about live albums that were edited between then and now we're actually talking about it. Chris, what was this article? Because it's big news.
apparently one of the Ozzy live albums, that is Ozzy performing a Black Sabbath set that was released in 82, 83, 82. But I guess since then, or well, the article says a while back, but the article was recent. It's one of those things where for clicks they're bringing back some old news. But anyways,
Yeah.
it seems as though the producer went on to say that most of the live vocals from the singer were, in essence, fully re-recorded in the studio as he was unhappy with the original result. And this is on top of the album already being recorded upon across several nights and being touched up in the studio by the band before.
So it's recorded over multiple nights. They took the best takes, overdubbed the instruments where it needed to be done, and then overdubbed all of, or at least most of the vocals?
Most of it, he's saying. Yeah.
Like, that's not a good... How do I want to say this? Like, that doesn't look good. That's not a good image of, like, wow, almost none of this was real.
There may be a reason that this album's not on Spotify or streaming. There may be a reason Ozzy wanted to bury this. Have you listened to it?
I have not.
I'm going to tell you, at a glance, this looks like it could be kind of fun. The idea of, a performance of Ozzy in the 80s doing Black Sabbath stuff. But first off, I would say this doesn't, even if it's redubbed, it doesn't sound like peak live Ozzy, right? I mean, and Ozzy's not like the greatest live vocalist to begin with, but like...
No.
I wouldn't say this was peak. But this is also post-Randy leaving the band and pre-Jake Lee. So they have the guitarist from Night Ranger.
I was going to say, so who even was it?
Do you know who the guitarist for Night Ranger is?
No.
Give me 1 second because I didn't even make a note. I just hoped that it wouldn't come up.
Brad Gillis.
Brad Gillis. Yeah, that sounds right. And they also had the bassist for Quiet Riot.
Wow.
So, yeah, this was a... What's his name? Bob? Who was his usual bassist back in the time?
Was that Bob Rock or whatever?
No,
that's the mountain. That's the Metallica
No, that's the guy who thinks he's in Metallica.
That's the Metallica guy.
Bob Daisley.
Thank you. I was gonna say, I actually don't know, honestly. Yeah, no, there he is, Bob Daisley.
So this
I don't
album...
think I realized there was a... Wow, I'm sorry. I did not realize there was ever a time between Randy Rhoads and Jake E. Lee.
They didn't put out an album, but there's this Brad Gillis guy is on this live album.
Crazy. I genuinely didn't know that was a thing.
That, again, is buried. And Rudy Sarzo of Quiet Riot plays bass on this live album.
Wow.
And I'll give it this. The track listing is fucking awesome. I mean, opening with Symptom of the Universe, Snowblind, Black Sabbath. I mean, The Wizard, which like doesn't get a lot of love from actual Black Sabbath anymore, is cool to hear.
Oh, I love that song.
With like the more modern, kind of shreddy. I mean, it's not Randy Rhoads or Jakey Lee, but still, it's more of a shreddy style than.
But it was still like an 80s guy.
Does.
Yeah, it was one of the 80s like glam rock style guys who were all about the technical insanity.
Right. So, but again, like you kind of like look at the lineup, it's like, what did we miss out on by losing? Because apparently Randy Rhoads was planned to do this with Ozzy, and it fell through.
Huh. Okay. I'm actually learning about like the Ozzy career right now. I had no idea this ever happened.
Yes. And then on the album, the tracks Iron Man, Children in Grave, and Paranoid are apparently like really fucking loose and sloppy, which they are, because they thought that they were going to take recordings from different nights. So they performed them for the crowd thinking they weren't going to make it to tape.
Oh, no.
Thinking they were going to take these recordings with Randy Rhoads and splice them onto the end of the album. And they decided to hold on to the Randy Rhoads recordings for a different release. So you get these really sloppy last 3 songs on the album. It's an interesting listen if you want to hear some.
I just pulled it up because I'm going to be listening to it here later. I'm very curious. I have to say I'm curious about this comment, Mr. Schmuggy25. I don't know where you're getting your information, but quote, Brad Gillis had to learn all the songs for this tour in 4 days.
So I don't know if that's exactly true, but both the producer and like all of the comments on Wikipedia is like this was really like slapdash together.
Interesting.
In fact, it seems like this recording ended and Brad Gillis and Rudy Sarzo like immediately quit Ozzy and went back to Night Ranger and Quiet Riot, or joined Night Ranger and went back to Quiet Riot.
Crazy.
In fact, I believe it also said somewhere that Rudy Sarzo, was it Rudy? One of them, Ozzy was so pissed off at, he fought them backstage at a later show.
Oh, okay.
Because they just bailed after this live album was thrown together.
Wow, okay. Yeah, I very seriously, I have no knowledge of this at all. I have completely missed this existing.
The problem is that this might have been kind of interesting if Black Sabbath didn't have like 5 reunion albums I'd rather listen to.
I mean, yeah, the thing I was gonna say, because like the thing is, like so speaking of other albums that are like regular rotation, if I'm gonna listen to Black Sabbath, there's a damn good chance I'm putting on I think it's 1999 reunion album.
Right.
Which I am sure is overdubbed. No offense to Ozzy. No offense to Ozzy. I do not believe that these are all live vocals. I just don't. I've heard enough bootleg recordings of Ozzy.
Yeah.
It's too clean. It's too good.
Yeah.
Which, again, I'm going back to like that's not what I would have expected. That's not what I expect from Ozzy in a live setting anyway. So like I wouldn't be mad at an Ozzy concert.
Right.
But from an album perspective, like a little bit of polish makes it feel more real. As dumb as that sounds, right? Like making it a little fake makes it feel more real.
Right.
It's like the do you know the Tiffany problem?
No, go ahead.
There's this idea that like anytime you make like let's say like you're making like a historical movie, there are sometimes things you have to do where you make it less accurate for the sake of making it feel more accurate. And an example would be if you made a movie taking place in ancient Greece and you named a character Tiffany, that doesn't feel right, but apparently Tiffany was a name in ancient Greece.
Yeah, I think we have talked about that now that you say it.
Yeah, even though it's one of those ones like it's called like the Tiffany problem, even though it isn't actually accurate. Like I believe the Greek name was like Theophanu or something more along those lines.
Right.
But it's like like if you have a gunfight in a movie, the gun sounds are all super fake. Or if something blows up in a movie, explosions in movies are fakeified because what the actual explosion would look like doesn't look real.
Yeah.
So it's one of those kind of things. Like, I feel like live albums are I treat them kind of the same way. If so, in some ways, making them a little fake makes them feel more real.
Right. Yeah.
Very odd. I'm pretty excited, actually. I am going to have to listen to this Ozzy album, because I did not. I literally, I saw, you sent me the article, I saw it, I read it, and I thought, I'm going to leave this for Chris to talk about, and then just, completely forgot to go back and follow up on it.
All right. So I absolutely want to talk about, like favorite live albums and all that kind of stuff at a different time.
Sure.
So just on this topic of fake live albums, do you have any other thoughts?
No, I
No?
will save anything else I can save anything else for the next time we talk about live albums in general.
Okay, cool.
Because, I have other, I could go on for forever. So why don't we
Right.
stop talking about this there, and I can talk more about live albums some other time, because
That's
God knows
absolutely
I
fine.
could do it for forever.
That's absolutely fine. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to hit stop, and we're going to redub this podcast so that it sounds good this time.
I hate this so much. Chris, what have you been listening to?
Jeff, I've been listening to some live albums. Hold on, let me pull up my last FM.
Okay. Obviously, when I ask you that, I am referring to not things related to the podcast.
Actually, I have one more, because I'm now looking at it. I did listen to Unleashed in the East by Judas Priest.
Oh, yeah, that's another famous one that apparently basically all of the vocals are fake.
Yeah, evidently. I mean, it sounds great, but man, I wouldn't be surprised. Rob Halford has some off nights sometimes, and I wouldn't be surprised if he needed overdubbed on the live album.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I'm not surprised by that either.
Unleashed in the East by Judas Priest. There's a lot of rhyming in that, Jeff. I've been listening to Wu-Tang Clan.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Just not what I expected. I didn't expect live albums to put you in the mood for Wu-Tang Clan, but alright, I'm here for it.
I just realized that, I don't listen to enough Wu-Tang Clan, and I need to do it more so I can keep making the joke to you about which member is the worst member of Wu-Tang
Which
Clan.
member is the worst member of Wu-Tang Clan? I have no problem
For
with that.
those of you playing along at home, I have asked Jeff 3 times, but only once on the podcast, who the worst member of Wu-Tang Clan is.
And I've apparently agreed every time, because
Yes.
I don't really... That's one of those things you're just going to keep saying, and I don't know what else to say, so I just feel like I have to agree.
Well, okay, so I think the first time was, is you, God, the worst member of Wu-Tang Clan? You agreed. You agreed that you, God, was. The second time, I believe, was Inspected Deck. And the third time, during the ICP episode, was Raekwon.
Oh, okay. That's really funny. I would just agree with this, though. Alright.
Jeff, who is the worst member of Wu-Tang Clan, though?
I really am not... I'm not going to actually try and, I'm not making a tier list, alright? I'm not doing this. Because also, quite frankly, I don't know enough about all of them to really say. There's some I can't judge.
Right.
But I'm going to keep agreeing every time you ask me if one's the worst. Alright. So
Jeff, is Old
Wu-Tang
Dirty
Clan.
Bastard the worst member of Wu-Tang Clan?
What else have you been listening to?
I mean, I've been listening to Dirt by Alice in Chains for some reason.
Oh, alright.
And I found a human being who had never listened to the Misfits, so I've been doing that. Other than that, I went and saw Alice Cooper.
You did? For the 8th time or whatever?
God, something like that. Man, he's still fucking incredible at 75. I don't have that much energy at fucking 32.
No. The dude's a monster. Unreal.
Funny side story. I went with our friend. She
Yeah.
fell asleep in the car on the way home, and I switched over to some Devin Townsend. I got home literally that night, just scrolling on YouTube. Someone did a fucking mashup of Schools Out in the style of Strapping Young Lad.
Seriously?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of funny, actually. I'm into that.
I'm telling you, man, we're getting spied on more and more somehow.
I mean, it really does feel like that, doesn't it?
Jeff, what did the internet tell you want to listen to, and you agreed?
Oh my, what? Wait, how did you know? Do I really do that a lot? Is that really what happens?
I'm just saying. We are all being recommended things by the what the fuck's it called?
The algorithm? Is
The
that the word you're
algorithm.
looking for?
We've all been. The algorithm has figured us all out, and we just kind of nod our heads these days.
Okay, I mean, I hate that you said that. Because one thing I've actually been listening to quite a bit of the past couple days is In Excess.
It's because of the algorithm?
And it's because of Reddit.
Oh, okay.
Someone posted on Reddit, like, just a couple days ago. It was on, I think, the subreddit Today I Learned.
Yeah.
And it was, like, Today I Learned that Michael Hutchins, I guess is how we would say it, that Michael Hutchins of In Excess did not die from, as I've always assumed, autoerotic asphyxiation is the story.
Okay.
Like, he accidentally hung himself for that reason. But, like, no, it's like, very genuinely just, like, I mean, it was still a suicide, but it was, like, it was an intentional suicide. Apparently what happened was he was, like, literally, like, assaulted. He was, like, attacked at one point.
Jeez.
And that ended up causing some brain damage. He, I believe, lost, like, his sense of smell and a lot of taste, and it caused other issues, and he was developing drug issues and whatnot, and he ultimately did take his own life. And the autoerotic asphyxiation story apparently came from his, I don't know if it's girlfriend or wife, made that claim, probably, like, looking for,
like an excuse or something.
Like, how could he have actually done this? Like, surely it was something else. So, thanks to the internet, I was listening to a lot of In Excess, who I've never really listened to before, and I really like them, to be honest with you.
Okay, I'm gonna be honest, I never really got into In Excess, so, give me, at the very least, your favorite one so far.
Mostly I've been listening to the album Kick seems to be the one that, like, has most of their big songs on it, and I can kind of see why.
Okay.
Like, New Sensation and Need You Tonight and Mystify, like, these seem to be, like, their bigger songs, and I can kind of see why. I think the whole album is just really fun, though. I'm just kind of just really digging it in general. It's a very good groove album.
Okay.
So, oddly enough, I've been in Excess. And then I've also been digging this group called Hotter Than December. And it's like synthwavy, some shreddy guitar kind of stuff. But it's just it's good driving music to me, that sort of thing. And I found them randomly on Reddit as well, actually. Just like the person who is part of this project posted in another thread, like, oh, hey, for whatever you're doing, you can use my music for free, and here's a link. And been digging Hotter Than December a lot, but they put me in the mood to listen to Buckethead, so I'm, for better or worse, on a Buckethead kick. And
oh man,
you know how he has like 30 million albums.
I was explaining to our coworkers, the topic of Guns N' Roses came up, and I was explaining to him about, like, he just brought up Buckethead. I was like, that man's fucking insane. He, like, recorded an album every day for 31 days for Halloween one year.
He has literally hundreds of albums. He has hundreds, and they're it's this whole series. They're called Pikes, and they're all like they're short. I mean, they're all like half an hour long, and a lot of them are just like fairly simple ambient music. Like, I don't want to go out and say, like, they're not all massive experiments. They're not all the same level as, like, Welcome to Buckethead Land kind of thing. But they're all very interesting, I think. And there's a website, if you just look up Pike Suggester, this guy made a website of all of them, and it has different categories: mellow, rock, heavy, melodic, whatever. And you can check different categories. So, like, if you're in the mood to listen to something new from Buckethead, you can go, like, okay, I want something technical and melodic and ambient. Oh, actually, that's a bad choice. There's none of those. But I have put technical and melodic, like, here's 7 albums that fit that category. And you can go, like, oh, okay, let's check out this one. And this one's called Meteor Firefly Net. There you go. That's how you find Buckethead albums. He's a weird dude, and I love him.
Buckethead's out there, and, I bet he's the kind of guy who scours the internet for his name.
You think?
And now there will be an album that is, would you say, melodic, technical, and ambient? Because you wanted it. I was just clicking various options in the Pike
Suggester.
This. He's making it tonight. 435 studio albums. He can make another one tomorrow. It doesn't matter. He records in a chicken coop or whatever.
If I click ambient and melodic, there's a pike that shows up. And like, hey,
Yeah.
recommend this one. And it's just like, that's just kind of how it works. I think it's just a cool concept. Because it's
That is a
impossible
pretty
to
cool
keep
site.
track of. It's impossible to keep track of all of his music. Christopher,
Are we done?
are we done?
Are we done? No, we're not done. We have to record the whole fucking thing over again so that we can get all the mistakes out.
No. It's been an hour and 15 minutes. We just need to go back and find all the spots that need to be redubbed.
Okay.
And then hold on. Let me find some canned applause that you can add in as background for the entire album.
Actually, what I was thinking is I'm going to a Conan concert and I'll just record the audience noise and I'll just put it over the podcast.
But make it a really bad loop. Like get like 10 seconds and then just keep looping that entire.
Yeah, and I'll
10
just
seconds.
change the volume depending on how funny we are.
That's awful. Hey, this is Jeff. I just wanted to give a quick shout out here to YouTube user Hugo Timo, who commented on the Bocchi the Rock episode. Just to make a clarification for us, I made a reference that one of the characters in the show's the name is similar to what I thought of was an egg laying fetish, and I kind of made a weird joke about that. And our champion here, Hugo, gave us the comment that the word I was looking for is futanari. So if you want to if you want to look that up, it's Futanari. Futanari. Thanks, Hugo. Also, while I'm at it, because in conversation on the Bocchi the Rock episode, Chris and I were discussing the fact that I, when possible, actually have marked down the manufacture date on some of my guitars. And as of this recording, my very first guitar turns 21 years old tomorrow. And just in case anyone was curious, the goofy, doofy little shred interludes that Chris uses when editing things, those were all played on her. I say her. God, I am one of those, like, cringy dudes who names his guitars. Yeah, so this is it's a manufactured on May 4th, 2002. It's a Yamaha Pacifica. And her name is Melfina, named after the character from Outlaw Star. So, happy birthday to her.